Well, hello. Thank you guys so much for coming in today. My name is Connor. I'm the registrar here at the National Museum of the Pacific War in the Center for Pacific War Studies. I'm joined today with Alton. He is our intern, and I'll let him give an introduction to himself.
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Alton Kruger, and I'm a proud intern at the National Museum of the Pacific War in Collections.
And there was more intro than that.
Yeah. I love history.
Sorry about that.
Yay!
Thank you guys so much for tuning in today. We're still getting a few things set up here and there. So if we're looking back and forth, there's a few cameras, a few different things we're looking at, a few different angles. But thank you guys so much for joining us today. We're going to be labeling a few different artifacts, cataloging them, walking through the process of what is a collection piece, why is it important, what are we doing with them. I'll let him kind of lean in, get that up close.
Yeah, one shown right here, which we're going to be starting with. Very cool patch.
Make sure you go to that camera too, because
other
camera.
Yep.
Instagram camera.
Yeah.
Oh, perfect.
So that all of our adoring fans can see it.
There we go. So there's a lot that goes into this. We kind of break it down, accessioning, cataloging, as one or two different categories, depending on what stage you're at with an artifact. When a piece comes in, after it goes to our collections committee. So if you choose to donate a piece, where most of our collection has been donated to us or is on loan from the military, but a vast majority has been donated to us. So if you donate a piece, it goes to collections committee, where our archivists, our curators, our director all review it per THC standards. And then we integrate the piece into our collection and we document all of its provenance, who it belonged to, where they served, why it is significant. That is accessioning. Cataloging it will then be, what size is it? What does it look like? If you're looking in a drawer full of patches, how are you going to know this is the particular patch? So each will get attributed a certain trinomial number. So 3 different numbers associated with it, the year it came in, the collection, and which piece within that collection that it is. And those things kind of help us out. So today we're going to be doing the cataloging of it. So we're tracking all the pieces. We're going to be putting different labels on for 3D materials. A lot of this has been separated from 2D to go into 3D. So there will be some problem solving, some looking through books, looking through our records. So we'll be kind of taking turns going back and forth using laptops. And a lot of this we're going to be learning about at the same time. Some of this came from before our time. Some of this is from 2009, from the 90s, from the 80s. And we're just resolving these issues, cataloging them, and putting them into new locations. So we might be learning right alongside you guys.
Exactly. A lot of these items we haven't even seen yet. So it's really exciting to find out what we have, understand the stories behind them, and be contributing to the rich history that we present here.
Absolutely, yeah. So if you have any questions about it, please let us know. Please feel free to ask, comments in. We have 2 producers, one here with us. She'll be asking the questions, and we will be giving you answers. There will be different questions in different areas. So if you don't see a question and we're like, hey, there's a question, we're not just making it up. It was asked on a different stream. But yes, please feel free to ask questions, talk to us. We're here for that. We might not know the answer right away. We might have to look it up. But we are going to try and help as much as we can on that. Now, for the first piece, I just realized, so this piece, this being a patch, we're going to be sewing the piece into it.
That's right.
Which we'll need the sewing kit for, but we also, our labels that we use are made out of Tyvek. And our Tyvek comes in these giant industrial rolls, which we don't have sitting next to us.
Which I will go grab.
Alton is going to go grab for us.
Intern duty. I'll return shortly.
Yeah, it should be back. Well, you know where it's at.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Sometimes we'll be sewing things in. Sometimes we're just pasting them on effectively. I'll kind of go a little bit off screen for a second. But if we're putting things in or onto materials, so if it's a leather piece or if it's a metal piece or if it's some sort of natural material that is not a fibrous textile, then we're going to use something like Paraloid. Paraloid B72, it's non-acidic. They are fantastic for these pieces. There's a slight flexibility to it. It doesn't crack. The reason we're doing that compared to sewing a piece in, well, one, you can't really sew on metal. That's kind of an impossibility. But sewing the piece in allows us to be, wow, that's loud. Sewing the piece in allows us to kind of give it that structure, make sure that it's going to last longer. And textiles, they bend. They're far more flexible. as you can see, y'all know what textiles are: clothes, everything like that. It's meant to bend, so these tags have to be able to bend. Tyvek, traditionally museums have used cotton a lot of times, and cotton works great. However, Tyvek just is more durable. It lasts longer and can be ordered in mass, such as these.
And it can be seen right here.
Kinda.
Kinda.
Can you cut off a strip of it?
Absolutely, I can.
Now for these, so every time a piece comes into our collection, it gets a deed of gift. I'm not going to show you the deed of gift. Deed of gifts have people's names on it, who the pieces came from, such like that. But they are attributed with a number, which I'm going to grab this notepad real quick.
One of the things I've really appreciated about being a collections intern in general, you never realize how many arts and craft skills you'll develop here, like sewing, for example. Very fun.
There we go. So this one, okay, actually, this is a great note. So without even having to look at the deed of gift, we have this number, which I'll hold up to both cameras, multiple cameras. If you could kind of see, there's one basic number on it, and then there's a little note written on it. Oh, I'm looking at myself. I'll just this. Whoa, if it will focus. Kind of. Nice. There we go. Come on, integrated webcam. So this is F2015.037.011. Once again, that is for F2015, as it was a foundation, took it in, the Admiral Nimitz Foundation here at the National Museum of the Pacific War. The Admiral Nimitz Foundation took this piece in 2015. It had been miscatalogued as .011 and it needs to be corrected to .021. So Alton is, did you just got this out? Perfect. I'll make sure.
Yeah, feel free to cut its size. What kind of thread do you want for this one?
We'll go with black thread.
Black? Okay.
Yeah, because we're going to sew it into the point. So yeah, that is the downside with sewing things. Whenever you're sewing things, you'll have to match thread colors because, as you can tell, there's a wide variety of colors on these pieces. So we're going to be going across that center line in the back, except it'll be on the back side. Going across that center line there because we want it to blend in as much as possible. These pieces go on display. These are museum artifacts. They will go on display. So we want that to be as hidden as possible. That is always going to be the purpose for it. Oh, also, we're wearing nitrile gloves. They're powder-free gloves. Keeps the acids and oils from your hands getting onto the artifacts. The acids and oils on your hands are going to deteriorate and destroy natural fibers over time. So it's incredibly important with these, and as well as a wide variety of things. Even metal. Metal is one thing people don't think about a lot because they don't think like the oils and acids on your hands aren't inherently that damaging to metal. However, the oil on your hand can create a coating that traps moisture on the metal, which then corrodes and destroys the metal. So it's a necessity to wear these whenever handling 3D objects. So if you're ever curious about that, that's why. You'll see a lot of times in movies and stuff that they're wearing the white cotton gloves, and we can use white cotton gloves. These are just far more easily disposable. They're more durable, really. So if you're using sharp things or things that have rust on them, odds of you getting injured from it are far lower. So, yeah. Anyway, we'll carry on. Could you start?
We have a question.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
What is the
Someone
question?
has old coins. Should they use gloves to handle them?
So yes, I would suggest it given the previous statements for trying.
Repeat the question.
Oh yeah, that's right. So the question was, if someone has old coins, should we use gloves when handling them? So yes, typically you will. One of the better things for doing coins specifically is given the coin, there are a lot of, I don't want to say aftermarket, but there are a lot of cases that are designed specifically for coins. So you can get them in a wide range of sizes so that you can contain them in there, hold it, and you don't have to be handling it with your hands anymore. It can be in the case itself where it's protected and preserved. That's a great question, though. Thank you so much. If you have any other questions, please let us know.
Yeah, please ask us. It's always very interesting.
Yeah.
And I sometimes learn things too, which is wonderful.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, I think I'm going to go ahead and check what unit this patch belonged to.
Go for it.
So one thing that's very useful, at least on my phone, is that I can take a photo of something and then I can search up what it is on the internet, and it will give me related images, which allows me to identify various insignia. So it looks like this one belongs to VC66. Let's find some information.
Now, one downside to wearing gloves is it's rather difficult to do most things. Threading a needle being one of them. So if you have any tips and tricks on that one, let me know. If there's any seamstresses out there who are just fabulous at this artwork, this art form, and wear gloves for some reason while doing it, let me know.
We could use some tips.
Yeah,
that's for sure. Yeah, we get a lot of these really cool patches, and I know that there was on our PT boat, which we have at this museum, which you should absolutely come and see, especially if you're out of state. I, for one, am out of state. I'm actually from Washington State, but it's been such a pleasure to come to Texas. I love it here, and I was really amazed by the scale of the museum. It's very, very impressive, and our collection is also huge. It's about how many items?
We have 55,000 plus collections, and within a specific given collection, you may have one artifact or you may have 200 artifacts. So we will conservatively say that we have a 55,000 piece collection because that would be the bare minimum. You can see behind, if you will focus on, well, actually you can see it from this camera and you can see it from that camera too. These shelves behind us, these rows, these racks behind us are full of collection pieces. Usually they will be in blue board material. So this material right here, it is oil-free container that has a calcium carbonate coating on it, and that prevents the creation of microenvironments. It is pH neutral, so it is much better for these pieces long term. These pieces are usually about 80 years old, sometimes even older than that. So we want to make sure that they last hundreds of years to thousands of years. Yeah. Now, with this particular piece, could you look up the accession number and see if we have anything on rediscovery about this piece?
Yeah, absolutely. And I also just found a document all about the squadron. So I can look at both here. All right.
I'm going to cut out a larger piece of tie back. I'm going to step
Okay, yeah, very fair.
Yeah. Thank y'all very much for tuning in, though. We have a lot of really cool things going on at the museum right now, especially with our ongoing renovation. Soft opening going to be in September. The larger launch going to be in December.
Yeah,
matching with Pearl Harbor Day. Please go.
Yeah, absolutely. Another really cool thing about this live stream is we really get to highlight a lot of these items in our collection which aren't able to be on display. I think it's about 5%. Is that right? 5% of our collection?
Roughly. Yeah.
Roughly 5% is on display. But as you can see, there's always so much history that we're taking care of and preserving and organizing to make it accessible, not just for us, which is hugely important, but also for researchers who might want to come to this institution. And we have a lot of really valuable resources. I know, in addition to our collection, one thing that I was really impressed by was our oral history archive. We have a huge array of fascinating, engrossing, and incredibly valuable oral histories from veterans talking about their experience in the Pacific War and beyond. And they're accessible to anyone online from anywhere.
You can find those online you can find those oral histories online at the Portal to Texas History through the University of North Texas. There are links on our website as well. Going to our website and going to our departments, curatorial department. Well, actually, let me make sure. We are the Center for Pacific War Studies. So let me make sure that I give you the right name on that one. Okay, so website pacificwarmuseum.org. If you go there and click on Research and Collections, you can go view oral histories through that link. But once again, it is in a partnership with the University of North Texas through the Portal to Texas History. As well as we are digitizing huge amounts of our 2D collection and making it free and accessible for everyone on there. So if you have research questions, if you're writing paper, if you're just curious, you're like, hey, what did my grandfather's unit do during the war? There may be stuff online about that. We're actively putting more things on practically every day. It comes in batches. So we are working really hard on that front, and it's a great resource.
Is there anything y'all have that we have here but we can't display because of the type of thing it might be?
Oh, is there anything that we have here that we can't display because of what it is?
That's a difficult, so yes and no. That's a difficult question. That's a great question.
Yeah.
That's actually a really
That's
fantastic
a really
question.
good question.
So there are things that we have within the collection, but given the nature of the museum, it is never our goal to hide anything. That is, for a long time, different entities historically had taken pieces in, and that's where they stayed. We don't want to do that. We want to be able to display everything that we have. There are pieces that we have accepted historically that did not align with our mission statement within the museum. So it may be more applicable to be showcased at a different museum, and we loan those pieces out. Museum transfers happen, and there are different things like that. But typically everything that we accept that comes into our collection is something that we are taking in because we know that either a researcher, a student, a member of the population, someone will be able to learn more about the war in the Pacific using that piece. Now, there are some pieces that we have accepted historically, such as we have some various pieces from Europe, like the European and the African theater, specifically ones that have like swastikas on them. Those ones we will intake, and typically like we have SS daggers. Those are ones that are taken just to not encourage open trade market of those. But usually those will go to other institutions such as the National World War II Museum and affiliates like that. We are a Smithsonian affiliate institution, so we work with other institutions who may be able to display those pieces and appropriately use them to tell the stories. Yeah. Are there any other questions?
One of the questions is, what's one of y'all's favorite items out of the collection?
Oh, what are our favorite items?
Narrow it down to one.
Yeah. Well, let's see. So, this is a really hard one. There are so many incredible pieces here. We have there's a Japanese fighter ace, Saburo Sakai. We have his goggles and helmet. And for those unfamiliar, he was wounded, and we have the specific helmet in which he was wounded, and it's just an incredible artifact to have in our collection. We actually, just off camera here, we've got an artifact from Tex Hill, who was a Texas fighter ace who flew with Flying Tigers. And that I think is pretty incredible as well. I'm personally really interested in aviation, so a lot of my favorite artifacts are aviation related. But honestly, I'm finding new temporary favorite artifacts all the time. Even those are really famous artifacts belonging to really notable ace fighter pilots. There's a lot of incredible artifacts that have amazing stories that kind of don't immediately jump out at you. Pieces like a piece of cork that someone may have floated on when their ship was down and they had to use it as a raft, or a rock that someone took and was from an island and they have a specific story attached to it. And that's one of the really amazing things about being in collections, and one of the privileges of being and working at a museum is that we're able to find those stories, attach the artifacts that otherwise, if we didn't know those stories and we didn't preserve those stories, it just wouldn't be the same. The artifact would lose a lot of the meaning that it really has, and we'd lose that crucial part of history.
I'm sure that was a great answer. I trust Alton. The ending was really
the
good.
Ending. I really just tried to finish it up neatly because I heard you coming and I was like, oh man, who knows what I'll be saying.
No, it worked out really well.
There we go.
Like that, preserving the story behind the pieces is what's so important. Because if you're looking at like a cool factor type of thing, I love the Rex float plane. There's only 2 left in the world, one being in the Smithsonian, the other being here. The third one recently was unfortunately lost due to a hurricane. So that was a few years ago now. So only 2 left. So that, like, in a cool factor sense, like, yeah, that's a really amazing piece. Then we have like Saburo Sakai's pieces. We have different flight nurse pieces. We have so many just incredible pieces, some original Papua New Guinea indigenous artworks. It's incredible. But one of my favorite pieces, because I have a personal connection to it, is this right here. Now, you might think you have so many incredible pieces. You have all these incredible, outstanding stories behind it. Why do you have a coconut in your hand? Why is that one of your favorite pieces? Now, the reason I have this coconut in here is because of the address on it that has San Angelo, Texas. I went to school at Angelo State University, and so it has a personal connection from that aspect, but more so the story behind the coconuts. These soldiers, it's a great depiction of that these soldiers and sailors and the nurses and the USOs and everyone involved, the world that they were in was so drastically different to what happened and what they entered and what we are now living in many aspects, that these individuals that might have been 16, 17-year-old who had never seen a coconut before suddenly get sent off to Hawaii. They lacquered up and they send it back to their family because they're like, look at this weird thing. Now with modern industrialization, we all know what a coconut is. We all have access to this, but it's such a depiction of a different time in human history that's still so close to us, and how much our world has shifted in so many different ways, and how the actions that they performed now have affected us today. And that's a really cool aspect of it. There are other pieces from communications equipment that are really cool. And there's just so many cool, I keep saying cool. There's so many incredible pieces. But yeah, the story, the human aspect of showing like someone took the time to be like, hey, this is interesting. I'll send it to my family. I'm thinking of home. I think that's a really fascinating one. There's another one that's, sorry, I'm going to keep ranting for a second. Another piece that we have is there's a Bible that was carried by a soldier that he took through war with him and carried into the battlefield. And on the Bible, it has a quote about him being protected going through battle. And he was carrying this Bible when he was killed on the battlefield. So it was one of those stories that it's such a personal connection, showing like who this person was, what their belief system was, what they trusted in, how it was built around their personality. And it's telling the human story that that individual gave their life for this. So having that connection, being able to share those stories is incredible and fascinatingly meaningful. So when you're looking at something like a coconut or a patch, it might not be like a gun. It might not be the most impressive thing standing there, but it tells such a deep history about who that person was, what they were thinking in the moment, that they were an actual living person and had these thoughts. It's a very, very humbling experience for sure.
Absolutely. And I think that one of the things that I've learned personally about being in 3D collections, I'd worked with 2D primary source. I mean, I study history, and I've always, of course, I've worked with 2D primary sources, but being able to understand history through the 3D material, just as you were saying about what people find is significant, how they're interacting with their environment, and seeing that visually, tangibly through a collection, it's really amazing. And I think definitely helps us understand that period much better.
Sorry for the long-winded answer. That was a great question, though.
Yeah.
If you guys have any other questions, please feel free to ask us. Once again, for those who may have joined recently, we are working at the National Museum of the Pacific War, just working on some artifacts, applying tags and such like that. If you have any questions, comments, please feel free to answer, or please feel free to ask. We are happy to answer anything that we can.
Absolutely. So on this patch, let's see, I'll just show it one more time if that's all right. On this patch that we're working on here. Yeah, there we go. Nice. This patch, can I say who it belonged to?
Go.
Yeah, absolutely. So this patch belonged to Basil William Huntington, who was a naval fighter pilot and instructor.
Speak up a little.
Was a naval fighter pilot and instructor, and lifetime member of a Masonic lodge. Very cool. He later worked at Celanese Chemical Corporation. Interesting. So, yeah, and the specific unit is VC-66, which was a composite squadron, part of the Pacific Fleet. I'm looking at their squadron history right now from 1943 to 1944. Let's see. It looks like it's commissioned in the United States Naval Air Station. Oh, Sandpoint, Seattle. Shout out Seattle. I'm from the Seattle area, so that's very exciting to me personally.
Huh.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
I missed it in there. You said it's a flight squadron.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Did it say what they were piloting?
Yeah, that's what I'm looking for right now.
Yeah, this is one of those, we are learning about these pieces as we go because
Yep.
with 55,000 plus collections, it keeps going. So we are ever learning about these pieces, what their provenance is, and everything like that. But yes, seems like we have another question.
Yes, I got a question for y'all.
Yes.
What has been the most challenging type of artifact to process, physically, logistically, or even emotionally? Any of those things?
What has been
I'll
the
let you go
most
first.
what has been the most challenging artifact for us to process? Physically, emotionally, or is it logistically? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, perfect.
Physically, emotionally, or logistically?
Great.
Are you stumped?
I have
I'm a
answers
little
if not.
stumped.
So
Yeah, why don't you go
Alton
first?
has not been here as long, so it might not have as much hands-on experience. I would say the more difficult ones are emotional. They have those stories and the connections of individuals who were lost in battle. Photographs, the photographs that were taken, the military had to take photographs of everything. So there are things that you might not think about wanting to see. You might be going through a collection and it's, hey, these guys are having fun. They're like on a beach, and suddenly it's pictures that they took during battle. It's aftermath of battles. So those can be very difficult to look at times. That can be very heavy. Listening to even like oral histories, hearing individuals open up about their experiences, that can be very emotionally tolling and heavy going through those. So those types of pieces are typically going to be the ones that are more difficult working with from an emotional standpoint. From logistics standpoint, I would say international shipping can be a difficulty, and that makes it difficult to process them. Thankfully, there are other institutions which have been phenomenal to work with. One recently that we're working with is the Gurkha Museum in the United Kingdom. Definitely recommend checking them out. They have been fantastic working with them, shipping, processing, such like that. So logistics, that can be difficult. Logistically, how do you move a plane? How do you move the admiral's barge? Those things can be difficult. How do you exchange a tank with a museum in Japan? That takes a lot of logistics. That one was quite difficult. How do you maneuver a tank? Because it turns out you can't just send a tank. You can't just throw that on there on a ship and send that away. So there's a lot of laws that you have to align with to make sure that works.
Just to be clear, we got a tank.
Yes,
You're not using a theoretical example. We got a tank from Japan, a new tank.
Absolutely, yeah. So it's a lot of hoops to jump through on that one. Yeah. Now, the physical aspect of it, I would say the deterioration state can create conditions that are difficult. If you're using a lot of the patches were leather patches that had paint on them, like they were painted on, that paint cracks, it breaks. It's 80 years old. Leather cracks, breaks, it's 80 years old. So those can be unstable, and they're just typically, we have to handle them very carefully. They are on mats and such that will stabilize them so they can't get moved around all that much. So things like that make it difficult. But from an emotional standpoint, physical and logistics standpoint, those are the types that are most difficult. Yeah.
Yeah. That was a great answer. I was going to say, after much contemplation, I think the collections of pins, because they're very hard to put tags on because they're very small font.
Yeah, that's a great one.
And it takes a long time.
So for reference, we'll grab one before we go to that next question. Sorry about that. Please continue for a second.
Another question y'all had is these artifacts that y'all are showing and things that we have up here, how do y'all get those? Do families donate them? Do y'all acquire them from other museums?
Yeah. So the question is, for the artifacts that we have, where do we get them from, both in our collection and the ones that we are showing right now?
A vast majority of our donations come from individual donations. So if you are an individual who has materials related to the Pacific World War II, and you were thinking, hey, this needs to be preserved, this needs to be protected. I want my story, my father, my mother, grandmother, whoever it may be, their story needs to be protected. You would contact us at the Center for Pacific War Studies. We have an email, archives@nimitzfoundation.org. Contact us there. There's a form online. those get submitted. They undergo review by our collections committee. So our archivists, our curators, registrar, director, all of us get together once a yearly quarter. We're currently in pause on collection, but we will be resuming very soon at the end of the year. And we review these, they intake them. So private donations are the vast majority of where these collections came from. We do have loans. We have loans from other institutions. We have loans from the military. We have a lot of Navy loans. So a lot of our planes, they're on loan from Pensacola, a museum in Pensacola, Air Force Museum. So a lot of military, but usually it's going to be people. It is people who recognize that their story, the story of their family, their friends, that needs to be preserved. And it is our honor to be able to display it and use their pieces to tell the history that they endured and they fought for to get us to where we are today. So yeah, that's a great question, but typically going to be private donors, which once again, if you want to donate, contact us at the Center for Pacific War Studies. We would love to talk to you further about preserving those pieces. Going back a second to what he was talking about with pins, here are some pins that came off of display. I don't really want to tilt it. I could turn it around.
I can also hold it. That's better.
Yeah. So these particular pins, they're very small. So if you are, I'll go to this camera first. Very small, very, very small. Hold up to that for a second. On the back, there are really small numbers written on them. There are very small numbers written on them. That is their accession number. So physically getting those on there is what he was talking about with the difficulty.
I've done that exact pin a few times.
There you go. So it can be a pain. They get very repetitive very quickly also. So there's some mental game to that also. Mm-hmm. Listen to a lot of podcasts while doing it.
Or audiobooks.
There you go.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Only World War II specific.
That's right. We're always learning. Always learning.
Nothing else.
Nope. On the job, off the job. I sleep in the collections. That was a joke. I do not.
I sleep in the collections.
I have another question for y'all.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So we got asked, do y'all have a program of preservation? Do you review the artifacts on a scheduled basis? Kind of like the system y'all were telling me about earlier of how y'all decide about things?
Yes, absolutely. So the question is about our systems for deciding what pieces are accepted into the collection. And honestly, it is one of the most difficult parts of the job. It is incredibly difficult because we wish we had infinite space. We wish we were able to intake everything. Like all of these stories deserve to be preserved, deserve to be remembered. So that's one of those, it's a very tough meeting that we have whenever it lasts practically all day when we review all of our donation offers. The intake process for what we do, what we want to search for is the amount of provenance behind a piece. We can take, I could show you that coconut, and if you saw that coconut out in the field, you'd go, well, if you're in Texas, you'd go, why is there a coconut in the field, first of all? But if it wouldn't mean that much. There's things that, this is not an example, but if this thimble were an artifact, if you just showed someone this, they would say, yeah, that's a thimble. But we could say, hey, a seamstress wore this and fixed the first USO's uniforms with it. Not the actual symbol that would use for that. But whenever you're donating those pieces, we want to know what the provenance is, who had it, what they used it, where they served, what ship, boat they were on, what islands they were on, were they in the Aleutians, any of that background information, what branch of the military they were in, as much information as possible, because we want the pieces that we intake are to be used to tell this complete story. So we want to be able to tell the story using that piece as a bridge. So giving that background information, letting people, a researcher or a visitor or a student, come see that and learn about who they were and how they fit into the larger picture, that is extremely immense. Oh, perfect. So thank you for that. Is there another question?
Yes, I have another one for y'all. So when y'all go through this process, how do y'all decide what pieces to display in the permanent museum?
That is a brilliant question. So neither of us are curators. So our department, whenever you look at us, that's why we are called the Center for Pacific War Studies. We do so many different things. Registrar, I will handle all of the tracking, cataloging of the pieces, versus our curators are the ones that decide what goes on display. They are the ones that are writing the labels out for it. Our archivists handle the 2D materials, research requests, that background. So we functionally do so many different things within our departments. But with the process of what goes on display, I think that opens up a future possibility of having one of our curators on here to talk more about that. So I apologize, I don't have a great answer for that, but you'll have to tune in the future when we get one of our curators to hop on the stream with us. But it's an incredibly difficult one, I can tell you that. Yeah, if you have any other questions or anything, please let us know. Like I said earlier, we are, for those who have joined recently, we are Connor and Alton with the National Museum of the Pacific War, just managing some of our collection pieces. We're tagging them, going to be cataloging them. I say we're tagging them. It's been like 35 minutes and we haven't done a single one.
We also have not said anything about that. Well, so this quick reminder for everyone who's just tuned in. This is a patch from, if you want to show.
Oh, okay.
That'd be great.
I was going to start sewing.
Yeah. Oh, perfect. This is a patch from VC-66, which was a composite squadron in the Pacific War. And I'm currently, whenever I look at my screen, I'm looking at their unit history because we're learning about these artifacts as we tag them since they're on our backlog. So we don't actually know all the artifacts already that we're looking through. We're learning about them as you are. And earlier we were trying to figure out what planes they flew, and it looks like they flew Wildcats and Avengers.
Please explain the job of a Wildcat and an Avenger.
Yeah.
Alton loves planes.
Oh yes, I do love planes. This is great. So a Wildcat is a type of fighter aircraft which was utilized in the early days of the Pacific War. It was succeeded by the F-6F Hellcat, and it was a critical aircraft because it was there when we needed it, and it gave way to some pretty ingenious aerial tactical innovations like the thatch weave. Very cool plane.
What is the thatch weave?
Yeah, the thatch weave is a specific. Let's see I'm trying to think how I describe it. Well, it was
I use the term now.
Yeah.
How do I phrase this?
The thatch weave was utilized, I think. Whenever we say "I think," what we do is we don't say with certainty. So it was developed by John Thatch, used during the early stages of World War II. And what would happen is, so the Wildcat was kind of, compared to the Zero, a less powerful engine. It wasn't quite as fast, and it sort of struggled to respond to, as a force of Zeros was coming in, climbing up to meet them was a real challenge because it didn't have the same kind of power that the Zero had at the start. But they were able to utilize some of the Zero's advantages to its disadvantage by incorporating several different planes all at once. So what would happen is there would be two different planes, and a Zero would be tailing one of them. And then it would have kind of parallel to the plane getting tailed, that plane would be flying. And then what would happen is one plane would bank this way, the other plane would bank this way, this plane not being trailed by the enemy. And then they'd weave back like this, so that by the time the plane, which was slower, was still on this curve, on this path, the Zero would already be past it, which was fine because that would put it in the sights of the Wildcat trailing. So what it did is it allowed for the less speedy Wildcat to actually take the advantage by being slightly slower because it could get behind the Zero during that turn. Pretty impressive tactic and a really cool piece where the disadvantage was totally inverted and used to secure more aerial victories.
Also, real quick, I have to say, if you are good at sewing, I'm not, so I apologize.
If you're watching, I let Connor do this.
You're like, why are you just going in a straight line? Like, I'm sorry, I'm not great at it. Plus, we have to keep the thread hidden, so as little thread as possible is beneficial. Yeah. But it looks like we have another question.
So we have a question. Do y'all accept artifacts from pre-Pearl Harbor into special collections, or is that a date? Is it a hard cutoff? And then do y'all have the space/resources to tell the story of the start of the Pacific Theater?
That is a brilliant question.
Extensive.
Yes, that's a fantastic question. So we do have pieces within our collection that are predating the attack on Pearl Harbor. Now, specifically, our specific date, I believe, starts 39. However, we do have pieces predating that. We have katanas that are hundreds of years old, but those are an exception. Those are exceptions to the rule. but we do have pieces that are relevant to it. For example, we have our Nimitz collection related to Admiral Nimitz. We are the Admiral Nimitz Foundation, named after Fleet Admiral Chester Nimitz. And we have his collection from the 1910s, 20s, 30s leading up to it. There are other individuals who served in World War I and then World War II. We have their materials. Typically, they will have a direct relation. However, there are also instances where we might have a ship that was like sunk at Pearl Harbor, and it's like, hey, they served aboard the USS Arizona. The USS Arizona then being sunk, we will take pieces pre-Pearl Harbor because they directly relate to it. So if it relates to World War II but predates it, sometimes there were uniforms that were used, things like that. Yes, we have a history of accepting those materials as well. And guns, that's another one. There were, was it the Springfield 1901, 1903?
1903,
yeah. That were issued. And they were used at the beginning of World War II in the lead up to World War II in the Pacific Islands and carried by soldiers, but then very quickly got mostly pushed out. So they weren't really used heavily in the context that we would think of as typical World War II weaponry. However, they would be used prior to it in that build up to it. And there's a lot of, well, another aspect that we don't really talk about as much as we think of the beginning of the war as Pearl Harbor from an American perspective. But there are many buildups to it. We used to talk about our relevancy theater or relevancy gallery, Seeds of Conflict, and now we're going to be talking about that buildup again in our relevancy gallery. But with that, there was the whole Manchurian invasion. Like Japan didn't start with the United States. Let's put it that way. Japan invaded other countries first. And so we have pieces from those countries that predate the attack on Pearl Harbor because the war was ongoing before the United States joined it. Mm-hmm. So, and that was in the Pacific. Mm-hmm. So we do have pieces from that as well. So that's a long-winded answer, but the answer is yes. We do have a cutoff of 39. However, that does have a lot of exceptions to it.
If you want an excellent book about the early stages of World War II, which incorporates the China-Japan conflict into the greater Pacific War, I highly suggest Tower of Skulls by Richard B. Frank. I finished that book not too long ago, and I thought it was a terrific read and a really great summary work.
Yes, and Richard B. Frank is an incredible author as well.
Absolutely.
And a very nice guy. Looks like we have more questions, though.
Okay, so one of the questions is, do y'all have anything from Pearl Harbor?
Yes. So we have a lot from Pearl Harbor. We have one of my favorite pieces from Pearl Harbor is actually a ring that we have. An individual cut it out of one of the Japanese planes. They cut a piece of metal off and they made a ring that they then sent to their girlfriend at the time, who became their wife, as effectively a promise ring, an engagement ring of sorts, that they would get married one day, that he will come back and return. And they did get married. So it's an incredible story behind it. We have oil from the Arizona. We have the hatch from the Arizona that is on display. And the largest piece, I would say, that we have from Pearl Harbor is we have the submarine. Mm-hmm. You want to talk about that for a second while
yeah, but I also I wanted to mention, not too long ago, we were working on assembling some mannequins so that we could put their clothing into the collections. And we came across a sailor's uniform. And of course, out of curiosity, we looked up its succession number, and also because we were relocating it. And what we found is that the splatters on it, the little dots all across it, were actually oil from Pearl Harbor. That was a pretty incredible moment. And also it just shows, again, one of the amazing things about working in a museum or just visiting a museum. You never know what kind of artifacts you'll find. In that same collection on those mannequins, we also had a uniform from Yamamoto. And it's one of those things where if I had not been told that, I would never have known. But because we're able to preserve them, we're able to keep those histories and make sure that those artifacts are protected.
Want to talk about the
submarine? It's an HA-19, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So during Pearl Harbor, what was happening was the Japanese fleet was going to sneak in submarines to start sinking vessels during, or I think it was in the prelude to the attack, right? Or was it during and in the prelude?
I wasn't paying attention.
That's okay. when they sent the midget submarines in,
mm-hmm.
like the HA-19, was that before? Was that supposed to happen before they did the aerial attack, or was it supposed to be during?
I think Deering. I could be wrong.
It would make
Take it
most
with a grain
sense
of salt,
Deering, right?
I think it's Deering. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that once the aerial attack began, then they were supposed
That's
to go
right.
and supplement the attack.
That's exactly right. Yeah. Well, so, and I think this is an important moment also to show that we're always learning, because this collection is enormous, and it's, we're not going to pretend that we know things that we don't necessarily know. So with the H-819, it was a midget submarine, which is a very small kind of submarine, and it infiltrated Pearl Harbor, or was supposed to, but it was spotted, and they sent depth charges after it, and then the submarine got wrecked, and it was able to be captured along with one of the crew members, right? Yeah.
Yes, it was captured. It was washed. Then ended up on shore.
Yeah.
One of the crew members escaped, whose name is escaping me.
Yeah.
Oh, I need to look that up.
Yeah.
I need to know that one. And he was captured, became the first captured prisoner of war by the United States in World War II. Oh my goodness. That's one that's infuriating me that I can't remember. We're going to look that up. Actually, can you look that up while?
Yeah, absolutely. It was, is this guy?
No, Sakamaki. Yes,
Yeah.
Sakamaki. And we have his materials here. He actually came back and visited the museum years later and looked at the submarine when it was on display before it got moved into the George H.W. Bush Gallery, which will be reopening for renovation soon. But yeah, Sakamaki was captured there. And the story goes that he originally, because of the stories that he had been told about how Americans would treat prisoners of war, that he asked for them. Probably can't say that on live, actually. I highly recommend visiting us so we can learn further about that story, actually. Because, yeah, it is World War II. There are things that we can't say on these lives. So I highly recommend it. Also, it's cool to see a submarine. It's a really cool piece. And that whole exhibit is being completely redone. So it will be really cool. I'm super looking forward to it. Honestly, I'm super excited about it. And I can't tell you more about it, but it's so cool. It's really cool what it's going to look like. So I recommend it. Once again, soft opening in September for our George H.W. Bush Gallery, hard opening in December 7th. Now, at the same time, we are still open. We still have the Nimitz Gallery. We still have the Combat Zone. We have our new submersive experience where you can go in and experience the story of undergoing the civilians being rescued via submarine and going through that story. It's all interactive. You're going into the sub. It's a really cool thing. I highly recommend it. But yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we've got a lot of amazing artifacts and some really large pieces too. We've got a V-25 Mitchell. When we talk about the Doolittle raid, we've got, and we've also got some Stuarts, 2 different kinds of Stuarts, an M3 and an M5 Stuart, and a Duck.
Was there another question earlier that I missed?
Yes, they were asking about what our collection looks like of baton in between 1941 and 42.
Ooh, okay. So we have, I would say, quite a substantial collection, baton, Corregidor, both. Going through this just quickly, actually, let me just look up baton. So looking up in our record system, the way it works, we can put keywords in. So baton, that works well. We have quite an extensive collections, uniforms. A lot of these individuals, like you say, baton, then went on the Bataan Death March. They were then put into prison camps, go on hell ships, various different instances like that. So we have POWs materials. There are some pre-capture, some post-war rescuing. There are a variety of different collections. Sorry, seeing DVD in there really threw me off.
Oh, yeah.
DVD, that's obviously newer technology. But yeah.
What specificality?
Oh, yeah.
Do you have any artifacts on Edward P. King?
So most of our pieces come in through donation. So if we do, we'll be able to pull it up through our accession records. But I will check specifically if that name pops up. Nothing pops up as a donor from Edward King. Let's check catalog records. So as our collection primarily comes through donation, it is dependent on.
Yeah, I think we had a researcher doing some work on King.
Yeah, I'm trying to see. Unfortunately, Framed portrait of Major General Edward P. King Jr., General Edward King. A lot of photographs. Bronze plaque. I'm trying to see if we have any personal materials. Oh, we have a trunk or footlocker belonging to him.
Yeah, I think they were working on their King's Journal, so we might also have that.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, there we go. Yeah, letters, envelopes, and a diary.
Perfect.
Yeah. So yes, we do have some of his personal materials. Yes. That's a great question. Mm-hmm. That sounds like a plugged question. Do you have some of this specific individual? It's like, yeah.
Yeah.
If anyone wants to ask if we have any of Admiral Nimitz's stuff.
Yeah.
Dead end on that one.
No,
we are honored to have a lot of his materials.
Absolutely.
Honored to have all of these materials. That's one of those things.
Sorry to interrupt you, but we just keep getting all of the questions.
Oh, absolutely.
Wonderful. Thank you.
So we have something do you have anything from the Philippines?
Anything
during this time period?
Yes. So one thing I actually find quite fascinating is when you're in the Philippines, the soldiers and sailors both were trading extensively and bartering extensively with the Filipino people. So there are shoes from the Philippines that they would trade. Usually soldiers, sailors were purchasing them, and they are like sandals and such like that they were sending back home. So they're really, honestly, in really good condition a lot of times because they were sent back home to family and friends, and they're like, wow, this is great. We kept it. There we have weapons from Philippine guerrillas. We have quite an extensive collection, but yeah, there's a lot of indigenous arts from that area and Filipino art from that period. So it's really cool to have those pieces as well. But yeah, usually those are like shoes, dolls, handheld things like that.
I have a personal question.
Of course.
Is there any place in the Pacific Theater that we don't have artifacts or things from that y'all could think of?
That is a phenomenal question. So I would say one place that we don't think about a lot that I mentioned earlier, if you were in the stream at that time, is the Aleutians. The Aleutians is one that, being in Alaska, most people don't think about it. They think of the Pacific War. They think of jungles. That's the primary thing. They think of beaches, tropical, but there was warfare going on in Alaska at the time, in the Aleutians. So we don't have a lot from the Aleutians specifically, as well as if it's from CBI theater. So China, Burma, which no longer named Burma, India, those materials, home front material from there is extremely uncommon because typically if you were in the Army Air Forces, Army Air Corps, you were going in, you might fly the hump. We lost somewhere around 500 planes doing that.
That's right, yeah.
But they were not spending a lot of times interacting with the locals at that time that lived there. So we don't have a lot from, or I should say, we would love to have more from China and India and those areas in the Pacific as well. Mm-hmm. But as for the Philippines and occupational areas, we have extensive collections on that front.
Yeah.
In a lot of areas.
And if you want to learn more about the CBI theater, which is the shorthand for the theater of war, which included China, Burma, which is now Myanmar, and India.
Myanmar, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Then we're going to have that as, of course, part of our exhibit. So definitely come to the museum to check that out. Yeah.
Fantastic. Okay. If you have any other questions, please let us know. And also, if you are just joining us, thank you so much. My name is Connor. I'm the registrar at the National Museum of the Pacific War. This is Alton.
I am Alton, collections intern at the National Museum of the Pacific War.
And we are working on some artifacts today. We have questions coming in. People like to know what we're doing. This is just a behind the scenes showing what we're doing. We're probably going to be wrapping it up in about 5 minutes or so. So if you have any last minute questions or anything, please throw them out there. We are happy to talk. We love to be able to have this back connection to y'all, to be able to show you, like, here's what we're working on. These pieces, even though it's been an hour and I still have not put this one tag on, we're going to be looking forward to future lives where we'll be able to do this again, to have these implemented, to work on more pieces with you. We have a whole ton of other pieces that we plan on talking about in the future. There are these, and there's a constant inflow of pieces. We're constantly cataloging pieces, and we'd like to have more different individuals. So we'll have curators out here. We'll have archivists sometimes. in those future lives. So definitely tune in the future, because it's not just going to be us every time. We'll have more people out here talk about what's happening in the museum and things like that. But it seems like we have one other question real quick.
Someone wants to know, how do y'all know if it's a legit artifact?
So that is a fantastic question. There are a lot. So it depends on the piece itself. There are some where it is, you have to provide that historic background. So if a soldier was in the military, typically they will have their, what was the equivalent to a DD-214 now, saying that they were discharged from the military. They'll have dates like, hey, we were here at these points. They'll say what ship they're on. Unfortunately, a lot of those records were lost. People did lose them over time. However, there was a large fire within the National Archives in St. Louis, so a lot of those records were lost. So we have to verify through a variety of different means. Sometimes that's associating with different pieces. Like we had a Type 100 that came in recently, a Japanese Type 100, it's a submachine gun, that it had issues with the serial numbers on it. So we had to not only check with ours, and obviously check with ATF, but check with other institutions to see, hey, was this a reproduction post-war? Was it original? And going through that process. So whether it is connecting with other institutions, third-party resources, using our own collection of what we know is verified and came from the individuals, because a lot of these came from the individuals themselves. So we can check what they had with the potential new donation as well. There's a whole plethora of different methods that we go into verifying that these pieces are real. And what they say they are.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Any other questions or anything? Perfect.
Well, and speaking of future lives, just real quick, I want to point out that we have a giant crate behind us, a giant mysterious crate, which is very exciting to me. So I hope, so please stay tuned, because we'll get to open the really cool crate.
Absolutely. Also,
I want to open it.
shout out to the Oklahoma National Guard Museum for this piece. Y'all are great people. It was a recent transfer that we had, so we greatly appreciate it. Yeah, there we go. That's the word I was looking for. And look forward to opening it potentially on our next live. So make sure to tune in on the next one, see what we're doing, see what we're up to, and we look forward to talking with y'all again. But yeah, follow us on our social media so you can see when we're going to go live.
Absolutely.
But yeah, thank you guys so much, and I hope that you have a fantastic rest of your day.
Thank you all.
Continue tying this off for a second here.
Yeah.
I'll get one piece done.